Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Diamond Drive Season 3. It's been a long old time getting back to the Diamond Drive, but here we are in our third season. As always, welcome in. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Nate and Jake the Bosmeister Boswell on the cameras. Nate, welcome back to the Diamond Drive Cup.
It has been a while, Jesse, and it's nice to see we have some familiar faces that have returned, as well as a couple of new ones as well. So it's I will imagine there'll be some change to the mid pack here, but seeing both the roses on the grid, Jesse, I've got a feeling I know who our top two are going to be.
Yeah, it doesn't bode too well for any of the other drivers in the field today or this entire season. But if there's one thing that we learned from the first two seasons is that the way things appear isn't always how they turn out. Of course, we had a surprise season one champion and a season two that was quite different past the midway point than it had been. We have, like Nate said, a lot of names in the field that are new to us, a bunch of names that are not new to us, and a couple of the names, strangely enough, in this field are actually staff members here at RCI TV now. How incredible is that? Some of the Diamond Drive coming onto staff and helping us with things like broadcasting, stewarding, socials, etc. Love to see it.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I mean, I think McKeehan. I mean, Jesse, you much more involved in RCI than me, but I'd have to say, from what I've seen, McKeehan has definitely become a big staple over in the staff room there, always just picking people up. And I believe, no, I can't remember who else. I'm going to be honest, I forgot, uh, which is terrible. But like you said, a lot of them, they came here, enjoyed it. A lot of them wanted to get more involved with sim racing, with the sport, with the organization, and RCI have opened their arms and welcomed them to their new home.
Yeah, indeed. It's quite lovely to have drivers like L and others help out with RCI. And also, it goes a bit deeper than that. There's at least one driver in the field today that had a pre existing relationship with somebody who is also a staff member here. So not only do we have it going one way, we have it going the other way too, of course. Racing is, after all, a family affair in the end, and it's going to be that kind of season. I'm excited to get to know some of the new faces that we have in the series. But again, to all of you at home, welcome back. It's been a long old time. I don't even remember, Nate, when season two ended. I just know that after season two, we knew there was going to be a hiatus. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure there was a slight hiatus between season one and two, but not nearly as long as between season two and three. And we got to get the elephant out of the room. The reason we're here with Diamond Drive season three is simply because, well, the way you get any series on RCI TV, it was asked for. And, well, of course, as per usual, we're happy to oblige.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The drivers enjoyed themselves, so much from season one. They all actually rallied together and requested a season two. Obviously, Charlie Martin spearheading season one, obviously for the first time he came around. Unfortunately, doing what many of us would love to do and go out for real racing. So sadly couldn't finish the season, but obviously drivers enjoyed it so much, came back to season two, and now here they are again back for season three, Jesse.
Sure are, and everybody out from pit road here. Actually, yes, indeed, no separate qualifying here. And as per usual, we have three different classes: pro with the white number background, silver drivers that are not quite as fast with the silver number background, and am drivers with the red background. Three different championships going on at the same time. But because it's Diamond Drive, they're also racing for an overall championship as well, with all of the splits combined. You can effectively win two championship trophies for the same amount of work. Two for the price of one. Is this a grocery store? I don't know. But it is interesting to see how that shakes out, because that effectively means, Nate, that an AM driver, simply by being consistent, could mathematically win an overall championship as well as an AM championship.
Well, we saw it in season 2, didn't we? There was a silver driver, and I can't remember who. I got a feeling it was one of the many sharks we had on the grid. Um, that were because they just turned up and did a good job, kept their nose clean, got really like consistently, finishing high up, getting good points, was actually in the running for the overall championship as a silver driver. It's crazy.
It is, in fact, one of the great things, and of course, I believe that came about in season 2 because of the topsy turvy way that the championship went. It was implemented at sort of the request and behest of the drivers involved. Of course, here at RCI, if you're new here, we'll explain it to you. We don't really do anything unless we're asked to do it by the drivers. We're all about input from the community to make the racing better, to make it what they want. And that was sort of what they wanted. We also, of course, you'll remember season 1 where it was a big talking point after the very first race in Diamond Drive at Alton Park. Should we split off the AM drivers from the group? Everybody said no, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. We're going to have 3 classes in the race. That is persistent throughout. We aim to please, basically.
Yeah, and I think the really nice thing about that, when we put the vote to them, as you said, they all refused it. And a lot of the faster drivers, the pro drivers, even offered to help coach some of the AM drivers to bring their pace up. And it was really a nice show of a small community coming together to better the racing for themselves ultimately, so that everyone up and down the grid would have someone to battle across the season.
Exactly, and it wasn't just talk from a lot of the pro drivers either. It was something they actually did. I would come in to our box here, and I would see some of the pro drivers dealing with some of the AMs, like trying to help them with setup and just getting tracks down pat that they might not be necessarily proficient at. It helped an absolute ton for the AM drivers. And talking about like some of the top drivers we have in this series, though, I would love to be coached by. I mean, I'm technically an AM driver. I would love to get that kind of coaching for absolutely free. And it's just the spirit of sim racing and the Diamond Drive Cup. The very first qualifying lap of this brand new season being put down by Einer Rose here, a 1:59.202 for the very striking pink 56 BMW, the Queen's design BMW, that brand new M4 GT3 machine, setting the mark to beat Mia Rose in second, 4/10 off that pace. Sarah Dove across the line, 2 seconds back. Sarah Johnson now across the line in fourth, the only silver driver to set a time. What does Robertson have? This is Charlotte Robertson. What will the Lexus do? And fifth place, quite a bit off. Well, something to be said about getting that first lap in, getting a banker lap, and then absolutely going for it. You've got all the time in the world in this nice long qualifying session.
Yeah, I mean, we say you've got all the time, Jesse. It's 20 minutes, but that can very rapidly run away from you if you get a little bit out of shape, as we see Sophie Erwin doing into the turn 1. If you have a scruffy lap, if you have an invalid lap, or maybe you make a mistake, potentially even hit the wall, go back for repairs, you could very quickly find yourself running out of time. I mean, we've been sat here, only the first couple of laps been put through, and we've already lost over 5 minutes of the session. So, like you said, it's important to get that banker lap in, just to make sure that you have a starting position in case your competitors have poor qualifying, so you can start ahead of them. And then obviously once you've got the banker, it takes the pressure off you, and then you can focus on improving your time.
It's absolutely the case. Johnson, the quickest silver, and the 87 McLaren, currently the quickest AM car in the field. We'll see just about, to my knowledge, just about half the drivers invalidated a lap. Easy to do around here, Nate.
Oh, it's very easy to do, especially at between Degner's 1 and 2, the fast right-hander. Very easy just to get your wheels a little bit off over the white line, and it's just immediately invalidated. Also, again, fast left-hander, 130R, infamous at this track, really. But also, you can, not only can you make or break your qualifying, it can make or break your race as well.
100% can. Einer Rose going quicker on that lap of 58.895, the new quickest mark to beat. Mia 3/10 off that pace. Acosta comes up to third, 1.5 off, but bumped off by Luna in the 66. It's a BMW fest at the front of this field, you would have to say. But Acosta down to fourth, Dove to fifth, and April Carlsvard all the way up to sixth, and Pole in silver. Is her team name called Giggle Gum? Did I read that correctly?
I didn't see it. I was busy trying to pick out who has got a custom livery and who hasn't. But I mean, no doubt we'll see it again. I mean, one of our staple pieces from previous seasons was Pineapple Racing, and I believe you always had a bit of a laugh coming from that one. And we got
Oh,
Billy
I
No
do
Gates
love it.
Racing here.
Yeah, that's a returning theme for Sarah O'Brien there. I believe they were Billy No Mates last time around, and they've stuck with it here. Love to hear the story from Sarah about that, about why they're Billy No Mates, but they've stuck with it for the better part of a year at this point, giving way to what I assume was one of the roses, but the rose has pulled off from that car and, in fact, the lap. Just about halfway, they're about into the qualifying session. Times getting set now by three-quarters, if not more, two-thirds of the field. Sarah Dove here in the 177, looking racy. Could put up a better number here, already inside the top five.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I hope we see a McLaren in the top three and not just this BMW dominated front row. But I mean, obviously M4 very very strong in well all conditions, all tracks at the moment. So very understandable if you want to be competitive why people have picked it. But in my heart, I love a McLaren. I really hope Sarah or WVVV can get it up there on the podium.
Didn't take you long to do that joke, did it? Hey, listen, we're with the drivers, the vast majority of drivers that we're familiar with. Old habits die hard. Laura here in the 87 was and still is the quickest am, looking to improve. Was 4.5 back and did so handily. 6/10 improvement for Laura here at 202.810, the quickest mark of the AM squadron so far, and that was an excellent improvement. Then here's Cosmo Marsh. We know that one, the Cosmo Project in the number 7. And do my eyes deceive me, or is that the V12?
That is the V12 making glorious angry bee V12 noises, but not the easiest car to hustle round here, Jesse. I don't know if you've had many outings in it. I had one outing in the V12, and that was enough for me to decide that I didn't want to touch it ever again. But Cosmo, obviously, well, pretty handy in it, putting themselves up into 13th, a couple of places above some of their peers. So enjoying that much more than myself, it would seem.
Yeah, indeed. It's one of those cars. We've had a couple of constants throughout every Diamond Drive season, and one of those is that we have a V12 in the field, and I love it. I love that we're keeping with tradition. And Sarah Dove, the GTWR Academy driver, looking for an improvement and improves not only on the timesheet, but also up to the second row. A 2-minute dead, .410 for Dove, puts them on the second row. And you know as good as I do, Nate, second row feels a lot better than the third row. You have a better chance from the second row.
Oh, absolutely. And it just gets you that little bit further away from any potential mid-pack dramas that might occur at the first turn. Normally, the first sort of 2 rows, maybe 3 if you're really lucky, tend to make it around the first corner unscathed. But anything past that is fair game, and you better watch out.
You folks in chat, hope you're settling in. And once again, thanks for joining us on your Wednesday evening, wherever you are in the world. We have a lot to explain in the interlude post qualifying and before the race. We'll explain to you everything: the race length, the format, what we can expect, all the little rule changes that there are for Diamond Drive. It's so different the way that this series is ran compared to any other series. Nicole Fox for next round racing the 202 McLaren going all the way up into sixth place. That was a welcome lap from Fox. But after qualifying, I promise you, we will lay down all the rules and regulations for this series. And it's a lot, folks. You're going to want to maybe get out a pen and paper yourself because it is so very different. Yvonne here coming across 10th. That was an improvement on the stopwatch, a 201.610. And looking to get more there. Sophie Erwin, the current leader in that class, and the 714 Bentley going around has about 2/10 of a lead on April Carlsbad on the timing sheet. And of course, the 87 still leads in AM.
Yeah, the 87's doing well to mix it up with the silver field. I think the qualification brackets that we've done have really nicely separated out this field into their respective categories, and I'm expecting to see some nice fights in every field as Sophie Erring comes around the final corner. As there's a car going a little bit wide in the background. That's the new line. That's the quicker line, everyone. But does Erwin improve on their time? No, unfortunately not.
Well, you just reminded me of something, partner, that I completely forgot. And of course, it's 2022. It's RCI 2.0, and not even Diamond Drive can escape that, which means there was pre-qualifying, as you alluded to. Basically means that all drivers have to report to a server at some point during a open test session period, usually a week or so, sometimes longer, depending. And they have to run a sequence of laps, and that's what puts them in their category. They don't just, it's not like the old days where they would just sign up for a category and hope that it was the right one. There's actually a mathematical process that they're put in. And for my money, it's working.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, we're sort of seeing everyone. Well, what basic qualifying is filtered out the classes by, their level essentially, with the exception of the 87. But yeah, the pre-qualifying format seems to be working really well as long as everybody has treated it fairly, and it seems like everyone here has today.
Well, up front, it is still Ina Rose who has that 6.5 tenth lead over Mia Rose. That 58.895 that was set about 10 minutes ago in this session, mind you, has not been beaten. Ina actually just came to pit lane for a brief moment. They were only stationary for a brief moment. And what that tells me as a broadcaster and a driver is they made a minor adjustment, could have even just changed the tires on that car, probably was just that, and came back out. They're still chasing a lap time. That's the other thing that very quick stop from the 56 tells me. They're still chasing a better lap time.
Yeah, they obviously feel that they've got more to, well, I say more to give. They're already over half a second up on their nearest rival and competitor, the other Mia Rose. So I think at this point, going quicker is just sort of bragging rights, would you say, Jesse?
Well, you definitely want to start off a championship on the right foot. And if you have a shot to be the fastest driver, you want to solidify that. And on top of that, you want to have insurance. And this is exactly why Mia Rose just set a time that was 3/10 quicker than the fastest lap that they had been able to achieve. And now down to about a quarter of a second. That's why you don't give up. That's why you don't rest on your laurels. That right there, because Mia now is right behind the 56, and it's very, very close at the top. Now, here's an interesting entry. McKenna Santos, the no-spin racing driver. We'll probably talk a little bit more about McKenna later, as she has an interesting tie to RCI that you might not expect. And on top of that, the other interesting thing about McKenna, Nate, McKenna uses a controller.
Ah, see, I did wonder if anyone here was on a controller. I couldn't remember from memory if any of the returning faces ran a controller, as we see Santos running a little bit wide there, but collecting it all back up. Hopefully, will move out the way. Yes, does indeed. But yeah, I couldn't remember. I know um, the returning faces, most of them were on obviously using a steering wheel and pedal setup. I believe Charlotte Robertson is running controller for this event as they have an issue with their wheel to some extent. But controller players on ACC, I don't know how they do it because I've tried. I physically cannot. I just crash all the time. I think there's a certain finesse and a certain skill that comes with using a controller. But unfortunately, again, I can't use it, but it just doesn't give you the feedback that you get through a wheel. Um, and hopefully, everyone at some point will get the chance to experience ACC using some sort of steering wheel system.
You couldn't be more right with that comment. Sarah Dove up to fifth here with a 2 minute dead point 2:37, as all of the times getting very close indeed. Up to fourth place is Dove, and it was quite a bit of a gap between every single car. And yes, there's a gap between the top two and third, but from third all the way down to sixth place, very close indeed. A tenth will gain you a spot for any of those drivers there. But that word that you used, Nate, was absolutely perfect. It's finesse. As somebody who back in the day played, we'll call it simcade games. I hate that word, but that's exactly what it was with a controller. It is finesse. And yes, a controller player can beat a good driver on a wheel because they're that good. My mind goes to Super GT, who proved that it is a bit of a handicap, yes, because you have less to work with, but you can still get it done. And we've seen that in RCI as well at the end of last year, where we had a couple of controller players outshine and outclass their counterparts, even in a pro field. So it is a acquired skill that Miss Santos is having to use. Something else interesting is I've noticed that Elle McKeehan has been out on the track this entire time, but hasn't set a valid lap yet.
Well, could just be potentially that they are waiting for the last moment. They're going to blitz the field, come in with a 155 flat, and just put everyone else to bed. Or maybe that they're just having a little bit of a difficulty setting a valid lap. As I mentioned earlier, it's very easy to invalidate a lap here, as track limits can be quite unforgiving. So fingers crossed McKeehan will get a lap in before the end of the session.
Well, of course, we have controller royalty in our chat as well, saying, it's easier than you think it may be easier for you, but I'm bad at it. I've been using a wheel for the past decade. I'm very bad. Yvonne here coming across the line and improving, but staying in 10th, 201.570 for the driver of the 147 Bentley. And that puts them still in their position, sort of smack dab in the middle of the silver field. But a couple of the cars, many of the cars, ejecting themselves back to pit lane, but a few still out. And Ina Rose here, the Queen's Design 56 BMW, still trying to chase a quicker lap time. And might this be the one?
Well, we wait with bated breath, Jesse. But I don't know. Where is Mia Rose on the track at the moment? So M Rose is on the track. So Anor does not go any faster. So the ball is now firmly in Mia's court to see if she can go faster. But unfortunately, it looks like she's got a little bit of traffic, which, granted, there is a sort of 2 to 3 car lengths between them, but it's very easy to get distracted by a car ahead of you. You just wonder, in the braking zones, are you closing up a little bit faster on them? Have they braked early? And you can very quickly find yourself losing time because you're second guessing what the car ahead of you is going to do.
Following behind a car on a racetrack is the same as having another player's hands in your face when you're trying to shoot a basketball or something like that. It's more psychological than anything else, except this exact moment where you get caught up. And of course, in Spoon, that's not what you want to happen, but that has happened. And if I had to hedge my bets, I would reckon that ruined Mia's lap, and I no longer have to wonder.
Yeah, Mia is gonna give up with that one by the looks of it. Um, well, nope, that's not the
Mia
racetrack. No, it's not over there.
Mia was trying to use the West Circuit pit lane, which is not open to them today. Mia, I'm afraid you'll have to pit on the F1 straight. Qualifying just about over here. I think we've got one car left, and in fact, it is McKenna Santos. That will be the final car to set a lap. Will this be an improvement? It will not be a valid lap, or is it? Hold on, didn't get to the line yet. And in fact, was a valid lap and an improvement, knocks them to 19th place for Santos there. Well, we've got 5 minutes, Nate, and I'm going to tell you that's just about enough time to explain some of the finer rules of this series. Everybody at home, get ready for this. Get your pen and pads out because this is going to take me a minute. The rules of this championship very simple. Every week there'll be a 40-minute practice session, a 20-minute qualifying session, but of course, it wouldn't be Diamond Drive if there weren't some extra things thrown in. There's two different race formats. We have 60-minute races and two 90-minute races. Today at Suzuka is a 60-minute race. Why is that important other than the extra 30 minutes of racing? Well, depending on the length of the race, determines the pit stop requirements. If it's a 60-minute race, you have to make a mandatory stop, but you only have to take 1 liter of fuel. So a basic refuel stop. But in the future, when we tackle 90-minute races, they'll have to take tires, not a requirement here today. That adds on to that. At the beginning of the show, we talked about the fact that every class has a championship, Pro, Silver, and Am, but there's also an overall championship as well, meaning anybody could win that championship based on points, regardless of what class that you are in. The other big thing that is brand new, Nate, and I'm going to let you take this. We have stewards, live stewards, for the very first time on Diamond Drive.
Yeah, that's right, Jesse. We've got our little stewarding army sat ready to judge any instance and immediately smite down any wrongdoers that they see fit. Just to make it. I mean, we saw it a few times in seasons gone by, Jesse, where incidents happened on track that perhaps would have warranted live stewarding at the time, as the after race penalty didn't really affect the outcome. Now, however, incidents will be dealt with during the race, which sort of levels the field out a little bit. And obviously, depending on the severity of the penalty, could uh, allow drivers to regain positions lost, or even potentially just feel like they've been had justice served against someone who has potentially taken them out, or maybe cut the track to pass them.
And on top of all of that, and by the way, we welcome in our live stewards and we thank them very much for their time on a Wednesday afternoon or evening, depending on where they are in the world. But on top of all of that, ladies and gentlemen, this is an interesting historic occasion. We have had our liveries implemented into other series. But Diamond Drive is the first series that has had liveries at the start of the season. The implementation of liveries started a week or two ago, and now Diamond Drive gets the crown for the very first series that starts with those liveries. And you can see them here. These are not ACC liveries, these are not Create a Car, these are custom paintwork on a lot of these cars, and it actually depresses me a little bit because they're infinitely more talented than I am. Look at these beautiful cars.
Oh yeah, the creative minds of some people is outstanding. The way that they can make a car look infinitely better by a little bit of paint is outstanding. And hats off to the Queen's Design BMWs here. All four of them, they all look pretty impressive.
Stacked and rigged if you are the Queen's Design team here today. And well, the elephant in the room is that we've got three BMW M4 GT3s up at the front of the field. So, Nate, my question to you is, can anybody catch them today?
Or I've got a feeling both the roses may potentially just disappear off into the distance. I've got a feeling if Nicole Fox, a returning face, gets a good start, she will definitely be hounding for P3. Dove will also be in there, assuming that they don't have one of their unfortunate tire pressure issues, as seem to plague them all of season two. And that would be my guess for the pro class. For silver class is anyone's game, and I'm not picking favorites. I wouldn't do that. I'd never do such a thing. Purely, this is based off of the qualifying format we've seen. You could only argue that Sophie Erwin has got silver class to lose, really, based on the fact they've qualified P1 in class. And then for the AM class, got to give it to Valenza. They've mixed up with the silvers, so they're obviously very quick for their class.
I'll be keeping an eye on the roses up front. Now, it has gone wrong between those two in prior races. It's led to a little bit of carnage. So we'll have to pay attention. Those two up on the front row are the closest in pace. So you have to watch out for that. For me, I think Carlsvard has something for Erwin today. And, well, quite frankly, I agree with you. Uh, Valenza, I'm just not sure anyone has anything for Laura Valenza today. They just seem like they haven't figured out as they have split some of the silver field. The interesting thing about our predictions, for those of you brand new to Diamond Drive Cup, Nate and I have called pretty much every race a Diamond Drive Cup, and we're quite often very wrong. We predict something, and it goes completely off the chain. So today, it could be very much the same thing. And very quickly, before we get going here, let's talk about the track. We have talked so much about the teams, the drivers, and the series. We haven't talked about the track. It is Suzuka. It is an hour race. You have to make a pit stop and take a liter of fuel at some time. And on top of that, it's easy to get track limit warnings here. And if you go off here, typically you go off in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jesse, where do you stand with Suzuka? Personally, I like it. I really enjoy just the track as a whole. Every part. Maybe I'm not a fan of Spoon because I never get it right, and I always either end up taking too little speed or too much speed and running wide. But every other part of this track, I just think is absolutely fantastic, and it lends itself to great racing, which hopefully we'll see here tonight.
It's a very long lap, Suzuka, one of the longest in Formula One and one of the longest circuits, purpose built circuits that you can race at. I enjoy watching racing here. I tune in for the Super GT series when they come here, among other things. I love it when RCI comes here because it's such a different racetrack, so different than most of the other ones that we have in ACC. But me personally, I never really got on with driving here. There's just too much going on, and I've had so very few good races here. But despite all of that, I have so many wonderful memories of sitting in this booth calling races and watching races on television and watching sim races as well. It's such a lovely track, and folks, you're about to see that at home. This place lends itself to really close, good racing, and I think today you're going to see that. The big trouble corners for me, absolutely going to be Degner's 1 and 2, absolutely going to be Spoon. 130R is going to play up, and also you have to watch out for the triangle, the final turn on this racetrack. All of these places are going to be trouble. I think everyone will get through the S's cleanly on this first lap. That's my final prediction, Nate.
Is that your commentator's curse coming into full effect?
I really was rather hoping you wouldn't mention that.
Oh, we can't start a new season and not tell everyone about our infamous Diamond Drive commentator's curse, where, as you alluded to, we would call it out, we would call a result, what we think would happen, and the complete opposite would happen. And we'd say, oh, this car's doing very well, and then they would immediately have an incident. So I reckon you have commentators cursed everyone.
Everybody inhale, exhale like I have done. A new season, a requested season of the Diamond Drive getting ready to start here. The roses make up the front row as 21 drivers pair up 2 by 2 as far as the eye can see and around the corner, awaiting the lights to turn green and the flagman to release them. They're getting closer, inching towards the line at 50 to 70 Ks, and there it is. The lights go green, the flag goes down, and immediately over to cover is Ina Rose, but there's Mia there hanging around the outside. They get it sorted by turn 1. Everybody else trying to come out single file in turns 1 and 2 because you don't want to be side by side going through the S's. One car going through the grass in the background, waved yellow flag, unknown if anyone else was involved. Ina Rose is clear up front as they're single file for the top 5.
Yeah, we do have a yellow flag at the start of the S's. We got a couple of slow-moving cars there, so I'm wondering if that is just a continuation of the incident that happened between turns 1 and 2. But it doesn't seem like there was too much damage. I think it was the
That's Sophie Erwin!
It was Sophie Erwin, you're right, it's a 714. So, Sophie's race to lose, unfortunately, and, well, rather infamously, has got herself tangled up in a lap 1 incident.
All the way to 21st place. They are dead last after being on pole. Fury April, the leader in the 714 in that class. Now that's interesting as well. Carlsvard's back there now, and dare I say, perhaps contact in the middle of the field from a car that might have been further back in the field. Nevertheless, lap 1 completed. Ina Rose leads Mia Rose, but there is almost no daylight between them.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jesse, hats off to you. That was very impressive for managing to keep that going when we had no idea what was going on. But secondly, it seems to be that the Roses are very, very slightly creeping away from the field. I mean, already over a second gap between them and third place. But as mentioned, well, one of the McLarens up on the podium, so I'm pretty pleased with that, but it wasn't the McLaren that I expected to be there.
McKenna, who started 19th in this race, is up into 12th place. McKenna Santos in the 22 BMW has had a rocket start. Now, I wonder a little bit if that was aided from the lap 1 melee, and I would love to I'd give you my last dime to see a replay of just what happened on the start. We'll see if we can get you that, but no promises of course. And what about the 87? Laura here was the pole sitter by a wide margin in the AM class. Now in the middle of that field, no longer on the podium, McKenna Santos, I've just noticed, leading the AM field over Sarah O'Brien. Oh, car off in the background. Was that Laura in the 87? Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. Looks like, unfortunately, 2 cars there, so we're going to get a replay of it. Looks like just the back end got around, maybe a little dabbing the brakes a little bit, and it seems the back end has just come around, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of runoff on the right-hand side there. Maybe if they manage to go straight ahead, plenty of runoff there, but on the right side, it's just a straight shot into the tire barrier.
Well, if we can't have a replay of what happened on turn 1, lap 1, the stewards definitely have it, and I'm being told by head steward Phil Roberts that it's going to be a little while. They want to get this right, and usually speaking, Nate, you know as good as I do, when they tell us that, that means that there's a lot to sort through, and considering how messed up the running order got in turn 1, I imagine there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Stewarding is a thankless job. They work hard to make sure they get the right decision, and even when it is right, the drivers involved often don't think it is. So you can't please everyone, but they do a damn good job of making sure that they get it right.
Yeah, and they will as well. The stewards have a reputation to uphold that they are fair and unbiased. And what they'll do is they typically will come up with the incident that self reports to them, and they'll assign somebody to that and then take a look at it. And then, if necessary, have a group discussion to make sure that the rules are followed properly. So it's a bit of a process, and especially when there's several contacts, there could be a car that makes contact with another car, and that's absolutely nobody's fault. Uh, and of course, that still reports, so you have to take care of that. It's a whole process. It's incredibly complex to explain. Again, there's a good reason why I'm in this box. McKenna goes wide here, and that might give Sarah O'Brien a chance to go up the inside, though it doesn't. Saved by the sweeping right-hand corner. Meanwhile, Sophie Erwin, the silver pole sitter in the
Oh, it's
7-1.
contact, Jesse. It's contact.
Contact between O'Brien and Erwin there.
So it looked like, what was it? Sophie Erwin tried to go for the inside. Sarah O'Brien didn't really appreciate that. And yeah, the two contacts. Let's see. Sophie Erwin keeps it pointing in the right direction, but unfortunately, Sarah O'Brien makes a quick trip to the wall.
Well, welcome back to the Diamond Drive, where our predictions don't really amount to much. I fear as if we have absolutely cursed a few drivers in the field today, and we do very much apologize. I don't know who did it first, if it was me or you, but one of us is going to have to sincerely apologize to Laura Valenza, I have a feeling, after this race.
I'm just going to blame you because that's what I normally do, and it normally works pretty well for me. It's just everybody. It's oh no, wait, Jesse. As we see, is that Sarah Dove?
Was that was all by themselves? That was no contact from the BMW behind. What on earth happened here? The McLaren just looked like it self-spun. Oh, the dirt, Nate. Hit the dirt, did Sarah Dove, and you can't do that if you have three tires gripping and one not. It's probably going to send you around, and it has done, but a decent recovery by the GTWR driver. They've gotten back going, and I don't see damage on that car, but the tires will be feeling the burden of that.
Yeah, they were lucky not to hit the wall. As you mentioned, just sort of a slow self-spin, but unfortunately, obviously with the new tire model that ACC has, those tires are going to be in particularly terrible shape for the next sort of lap and a half. So poor old Dove going to be feeling like that they are driving on ice for a while as they try and get the temperatures back under control. But yeah, it was a strange incident. Obviously, we watched it happen, and it didn't even look like they went too far wide. Just maybe, like you said, one wheel just on the dirt, and car just decided it didn't want to point forwards anymore.
So another thing that isn't consistent with every track, I do know here at Suzuka, only because I've fallen victim to this in the past, as the lights flashing from Acosta in the 40, letting Nicole Fox know that they would very much like to come by, and they are showing their intent. But what I was saying is, one of the things about Suzuka that you can't really see on a camera, you have to really get down and pay attention to, is the track is above the grass. So not only did Dove hit the dirt, they also drove off the track, and that completely changed how the car was sitting. So basically it had one tire way lower than the other tires, and of course if you unsettle the car simply by going on the grass, that's one thing, but basically completely removing a tire from any sort of adhesion conducive to a spin, and I think that's exactly what we saw there. Meanwhile, the next round racing driver continuing to lead Acosta here, and doesn't look too phased. Oh, it's going to be phased there. Is that Luna in the 66?
I didn't catch the number, but I know for a fact that I would have been shocked.
No, that wasn't Luna.
No,
that
I think that's McKeehan.
That was L.
Yeah, in the 292.
That was L, who didn't set a qualifying lap and has had a difficult day so far. Let's see what happens to L here. Just drives off into the hairpin, tries to rejoin, hits the gas, and it goes around. Smart to hold brakes. Of course, L is a RCI staff member, a steward here. And oh, close there with the Bentley. Just about got a piece, but didn't. But L struggling there. L knows how important it is to hold brakes and be predictable. And I know that looked dangerous to you on camera, but honestly, that was the best case scenario just sitting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it would have definitely taken Nicole Fox and Acosta by surprise. Oh no, sorry, apologies, Luna by surprise. But every other car approaching it would have had yellow flags, would have known there was something going on up ahead. I would have had a little bit more time to react, although that corner is blind, so you sort of turn left all the way around it, and then suddenly there's a bright purple BMW facing you, and it's sort of, hang on a minute, that shouldn't be there.
A couple of drivers have completed their mandatory pit stop. Pit window, of course, you have to pit inside of. It basically keeps you from pitting on the first lap and the last lap. That's really all it's there to do. And a couple of drivers have come in, notably drivers that have had issues. Dove, Valenza, and McKeehan have all been in. Nobody else has been. And are you surprised it's still within a second after 11 minutes of racing between the top two?
I'm not. I don't know if maybe we discussed this on season one, but maybe this is insider info. But the two roses of season one, when they were back in the Astons at Alton Park, thanks for that, Mike Jones, by the way. They actually were.
That wasn't Mike Jones's call, by the way.
Wait, Alton Park wasn't Mike Jones's call?
No, that was.
Oh, well, we're playing Mike Jones anyway. That's what we do.
All right.
But yeah, the Roses were in communication with each other and were actually toying with one another, trying to keep each other side by side for the first lap as long as they could. So I imagine they're probably in communication with each other again and just sort of staying with each other within a second just to maybe get that photo finish with both of their stunning liveries in one picture.
I got to give credit to what Eris tried to do there, tried to shade over Alice Horton just a little bit to make them think better about making that inside move. It worked for the moment. Eris went wide, but still the power around the outside for the 828 McLaren was all it took, as Alice just couldn't quite get the grunt off the inside track around Spoon, and that was excellently driven by Eris.
Yeah, I think the Bentley has slightly more grunt than the McLaren, and obviously the McLaren is slightly more sensitive to curbs than the big old Boatley. So Eris needing to be a little bit careful over the curbs, while Alice behind can just sort of monster them. But as you mentioned, playing it very smart in the defensive tactics that were going on.
Well, for me, a good tactic, the difference between a good tactic and a bad tactic is, can you pull it off cleanly and was it safe? Eris did nothing wrong there, knew the way the track was going to fall away, and probably knew that if they could hang it around the outside, which they did, they were going to end up with the better deal. And that's exactly what happened there. Acosta still chasing down Fox, no movement there. Meanwhile, Brock here in the 99. That's Dove behind, the leader of the cars that have pitted. Oh, a little bit of contact, maybe a little rough driving 3 wide there. The lap car, I believe that was a lap car anyway, caught them off guard slightly. Oh, no contact at all. I'm very much mistaken. My apologies to all drivers involved. Just arrow loose on the outside of another car.
Yeah, the cars, I don't know if you've noticed it, Jesse. I don't know if you've had a chance to maybe enjoy yourself a little bit. Whoa. 2 cars looked like they were getting very friendly up ahead then, just as we cut away, but I can't see any yellow flags. But yeah, the cars now just feel a little bit more sensitive to, obviously, aerodynamic changes, especially depending on how you set the car up. Obviously, it would be very, very easy to suddenly lose all of your... as we
contact!
see... Who was that? O'Brien and McKenna with the little love tap there, just a nudge round, the old nudge and spin. Almost collected
that was very, yeah.
The BMW ahead.
Yeah, that was the 30 there that had the nose in there a little bit, but contact between O'Brien and rather unfortunate there is that, like I said, the hairpin will be an area of controversy today, as it always is. We didn't actually get to talk about this in the beginning. We had a long spiel we had to do. Uh, we talked about RCI 2.0, the stewards, the everything, all that stuff, the liveries. We talked about all that stuff. What we didn't talk about was ACC version 1.8 that changed everything, including Suzuka. It lowered the grip level of the racetrack, meaning there's less grip, and that's why you're seeing when cars get offline, why they're getting quite so sideways. They wouldn't have done that a year ago this time, but they are doing that now. And it's interesting to see the different cars, the different ways the cars are affected by that. If you're a mid-engine car, it might hurt you a little bit more in the center, but if you're a big front-engine car, you may get a little extra wheel spin off of the corner. It's weird how it works with the different cars, but again, just a new challenge for these Diamond Drive drivers.
Yeah, obviously, some of them have been here previously with ourselves here at Diamond Drive. I would imagine a lot of them have just raced Suzuka through other events they do, potentially other championships. But obviously, those who have been here with us before and have come back now, obviously, maybe slightly confused as we see a nice little battle between, was that Dove and O'Brien there? Just Dove making their way back through the pack. Yeah, a lot of the drivers here obviously trying to use previous reference points, which may have come pre 1.8 patch. And obviously, as you mentioned, Jesse, the game has changed, it has evolved. The cars are different, the way they interact is different. So a lot of them initially struggling to adapt to the cars, the track, and the patch as a whole.
Yes, indeed. Oh, big contact there between Carlsvard and I believe Marsh as the two of those cars come together, but position gained for Carlsvard, and they will look to try and drive away a little bit. Let's reset the race because a lot has happened. Ina Rose leads the race by just about a second over Mia Rose, and they are well and truly out to themselves. The third step of the pro podium belongs to Luna now. It is a BMW lockout at the top of the pro field. And looking back at Silver, Fury April, who has done this before, assumed the lead based on everybody else making mistakes. Fury April has done this before, and they've done it here today in the 717 Ferrari. You've got the 147 in second place and the 888 of Johnson, the top three in that class. It's nice to see the 147 out there, a newer name that I'm not familiar with, and nice to see them out there. And the big standout for me of the day is the driver who qualified 19th, McKenna Santos, now in control of AM over Sarah O'Brien and Brock, the top three in AM. It's been a wild 18 minutes.
I can't believe it's only been 18. I hadn't even realized till you pointed it out. It feels like we've been here for a solid 45 minutes, Jesse. There has been, well, overtakes, spins, accidents everywhere. It's been, well, we've been busy. And it's, well, like we're not even halfway through yet. There's still loads to still happen.
We've been busy. The stewards are still very busy indeed. And I've just noticed that Eris is still being hounded by Horton for that position. Actually just got passed for that position. So Mark Horton up into 9th place, Eris down to 10th. And Eris did everything that it could to keep that spot. I just feel that Bentley, like you said, was just too strong. But that all being said, an excellent challenge for that spot. Meanwhile, we've still got this going on. Carlsvard versus Erwin here. Erwin now tasked with the unenviable task, Nate, of getting all the way back through the silver field. If you were the engineer for that 714 after an accident like that, in a battle like this, what would you tell your driver?
Well, first of all, I'd say that was a nice move because, well, they didn't make contact. And Sophie goes a bit wide, though, and leaves the door open for Carlsvard to come back through. But it's not over yet. But Carlsvard is going to have the inside now. And that looks like that's position returned. I would have said, nice move, probably mid-celebration, and then would have paused and gone,
It is Giggle Gum!
It is Giggle Gum.
Oh dear, I do apologize for my outburst. April Cosworth's team name is Gigglegum Racing. That's the 69 Ferrari who has gotten back around Sophie Erwin's GTWR Bentley. And this battle has been going on for several laps, and it's an absolute brilliant one. They've ran off the track a couple of times apiece, but more to the point, they've minimized contact between them. And usually, RCI stewards are willing to let all that minor stuff go if it's all considered fair. And I would say this is very fair between these two. And a car off in front of that might have, I don't know if that was Marsh or who that was, but oh, contact there maybe. Maybe just a little bit of a wiggle out of April, and Sophie Erwin has that spot again in Spoon. But will they be able to hang on to that? They're actually giving the spot back, look.
Yeah, very wise to acknowledge that the move was a forceful overtake, aggressive overtake with contact, to go, well, hang on a minute, I could potentially get a penalty for this. I'll play it smart now, because to lose a second or a second and a half now is less painful than losing 10, 20, 30 seconds once the race has ended. So well done to Sophie for being aware of what might be going on. As Sophie's in the pits, Sophie is making the mandatory pit stop.
Smart move. I love it. For longtime viewers, RCI TV will know that I love that. If you're stuck behind a car that's slowing you up, frustrating you, not letting you go through, if you can't stay in front, I am a big fan of that sort of maneuver. Just get in pit lane, get your stop done, get out, and hopefully run a lap or two quicker than them before they pit, and maybe give yourself a shot at that lead. And I absolutely love that opportunity. Brock's now the lead in the AM class, as McKenna Santos is fighting off Robertson in the 11 Lexus, who earlier, I will apologize, I said the Lexus might have been a lap down. They absolutely weren't a lap down in that fight earlier. They were just in front. I had misplaced the only Lexus in the field, so I do apologize to Robertson for that. But McKenna has a lot of work to do if they want to keep that second place.
It's good to see a Lexus in the field. It's my new personal favorite car. I believe myself and my teammates are taking it for the RCI World Tour. So it's a car that I'm getting to grips with, and it sounds great as well. It does sound really, really good. Maybe not as good as a V12 Aston, but it does sound pretty good. As we see one of our first penalties being handed out, Jesse.
We do. Flashing of the lights, though, from Ina Rose there, letting I believe that's the 96 of Sarah O'Brien know that I'm coming through, please make way. And of course, that's not necessarily how blue flags work, but very commodious and respectful driving by the 96 to allow that to happen. Meanwhile, an absolute log jam here between Santos, Robertson, and Erwin. You just get the slightest feeling that this could all go just a bit wrong here.
Oh, someone's off.
It does just a little bit as the Bentley goes off of Erwin, who is all the way back here again, and I believe that's because they made their pit stop, but just getting a little bit wide, no contact there, and expertly driven back onto the racetrack. That could have been big. Remember the McLaren earlier we saw go off? Oh, still digging is Sophie Erwin, trying.
Still sideways, still absolutely on the limit. But just to correct you there, Jesse, the car we saw being lapped was the 292 of L. Just getting out of the way of the leaders there. As we see, yeah, so Sophie obviously on those fresh tyres, going for the late move around the outside.
Oh, no!
This contact, is it big? Oh, it's enough. So what is going on? So it seems there's a little bit of a redress there. Seems that maybe Santos acknowledging that cutting the chicane would have given them a large lasting advantage, as we've got a replay here. I love that new graphic, by the way.
Compliments of Ryan Gill and executed by Jake the Bosmeister Boswell, but there you have it, the contact that sends one car wide. And of course, Charlotte there wanting to get behind, knowing probably the rules that if you don't let them back through or whatever, that it could be a harsher penalty. Maybe felt that they weren't at fault there, don't know, but also slowing down. And what that's also done is that has allowed the Bentley to go free for the moment. So Erwin gets that spot back and is one of the few silver cars, if not the only silver car, that has pitted to this point, as several other cars have come in. Acosta, Dove have been in as well. And finally, we get a moment. We'll talk about the penalties. There have been a couple. There was a 5-second penalty for car 888 for overtaking with excessive contact on the 147. Now, I don't see that one very often, so they probably feel very strongly about that. There was a drive through penalty for car 69 for overtaking the 714 from behind, spinning themselves. So, drive through penalty for car 69. A racing incident between the 888 and the 147. 5-second penalty for car 828, overtaking with contact, position not returned. Drive through penalty for car 30 for a takeout with position not returned. 5-second penalty for car 87 for avoidable contact, not holding brakes after loss of control. 5-second penalty for car 30 for avoidable contact. Racing incident between the 99 and the 69. 5-second penalty for car 99 for failure to hold brakes after an incident. Racing incident between the 828 and the 25. Racing incident between the 714 and the 96. Racing incident between the 888 and the 292.
Well, that was a lot to unpack, wasn't it, Jesse? But we see both the Roses coming in for their pit stops in synchronization there. I've got a feeling this is going to be the situation all the way through the race here, Jesse.
Yeah, they're somewhat chained to the hip, aren't they, the Roses? Well, that is just how it is. Cosmo Marsh here trying to fight off a pro car. Now, keep in mind, we mentioned this earlier, we'll mention it again. There is an overall championship that people are fighting for. So you normally would say, oh, why doesn't Marsh just give Acosta a spot? It doesn't cost Cosmo anything. It does in this respect because there is an overall championship.
Yeah, so again, we touched on it briefly. Last season we saw it. A silver car was in contention for the overall championship. So just the fact that you may be in a lower class than some of these faster drivers, if you can just run your own race, take home a nice big bag of points, you can still have a shot at, winning the overall championship. If everyone ahead of you has an accident and you finish first, that's a win for you. So it's looking at the bigger picture that can ultimately give you greater success.
Well, the pit stops completed for the top drivers, and Ina Rose got an absolutely stunning pit stop compared to Mia, who has now more than double the distance they were behind. We'll call it 2.5 seconds. Keep in mind they were less than 1.5 seconds before coming in, and they were nose to tail in the pit lane. So Mia stopped there just a little bit slower. And of course, on top of that, also dealing with, I would call it lap traffic. It wasn't lap traffic. The 147 was in second place in earnest there for the moment. Still has to pit, but that was a pass that Mia needed to make quickly and has made very quickly. Luna here in the 66, a little bit further back, another one of the Queen's design BMWs. They look so fabulous, in my opinion, just driving around. Even if you're not up close and you can see the small details and the characters and all of that, it still is very striking to look at, and I love how the radiator opening on that car is white. It accents it absolutely perfectly. Car off there. Is that the Lexus of Robertson? It is. Gets back on the track. And I feel like Charlotte may have hit the eject button here sort of on, I wouldn't say on purpose, but out of perhaps to protect the car on the inside or protect themselves maybe. Nope, they're still going off the track. Maybe something amiss with the number 11 Lexus.
Well, we have to remember Robertson normally races on a wheel and pedals, and unfortunately today on a control pad, so very different
Yes.
control scheme to get to grips with, really. So probably very unfamiliar. I don't think. Oh no, Robinson is our famous flying Lexus from Barcelona, if anyone remembers that. So definitely familiar with the Lexus, but obviously not familiar with using a controller. So perhaps just needing some time to adjust, but fingers crossed, the wheel and pedal shall return imminently.
This is the 99 of Brock's rear wing looking back at Sophie Erwin, and I don't know what Sophie had for dinner, but probably spurred on by what happened in lap one, turn one, has just been driving off of every corner like their life depends on it, and nearly got the dirt coming out of Spoon, but nevertheless gets that spot and is now clear of the AM field and will set their sights on the rest of the silver field. To Sophie's credit, it's been a eventful drive back to the middle of the pack. It's also been exciting, and also some of the drivers that they will have to pass, like Johnson or and Ayers, for instance, have a penalty, so that should help them a little bit as well. Yvonne here in the 147 going well at the top of the silver class and probably is e- kind of, even though Johnson's right behind them, probably breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief knowing that they have a penalty.
I mean, yes, in the sense that it's okay if Johnson passes and doesn't run away 5 seconds up the road, but also at the same time, Johnson is going to want to get past to make that 5 second gap. So may start getting a little bit aggressive, might start showing the nose a little bit more coming out of corners. Uh,
Ooh!
that looked close, didn't it?
I do apologize for squeaking, but that looked like an absolute lick of the stamp and a send. It wasn't quite, but still, the position might be gained here by Sarah O'Brien, who's trying to work the outside. Now, that was quite brilliant because the outside's going to become the inside, and I almost feel like Charlotte allowed that to happen a little bit because didn't want to be side by side through this stretch. And like you said, if Charlotte is on that gamepad, which it looks like they are, that is heads up, intelligent driving to know what your limit is and to drive within that limit.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like didn't want to make it too easy, but at the same time, like you said, realizing maybe not quite their fight today, so not making it too difficult.
I just realized that we didn't necessarily explain what the Diamond Drive Cup is, and it's sort of difficult to define in a PC way. The way that I've always explained it to people is it's anyone who does not recognize themselves as male. And I don't know if that's particularly fair, but it's sort of how I tell it to people, so it makes sense to them. And it's such a lovely series, of course, to have because we, Nate, you and I, got used to having this rich talent pool of non-male uh, drivers that they ended up permeating several other series. I got to call several races outside of RCI with a lot of these drivers, and it was so nice for me as I would consider myself fairly rookie as part of a broadcaster, but I had inside info on a lot of these drivers in this series because we had covered this, and it made me feel like an absolute $1,000,000 to know some of these top talents who, by the way, have been very busy in the interim between Diamond Drive Season 2 and 3. Several of these drivers in this series, champions and winners in between that time.
And while you've been talking, Jesse, we just had a little incident with Sarah O'Brien there. Just lost the back end coming out of Degner 2. Managed to keep it out of the wall, but unfortunately lost a little bit of time there to cars ahead of them.
Yes, indeed. Well called indeed. And of course, the normal thing that Nate and I will do, and we'll probably continue to do this throughout the series as well. If you are a driver and you are watching this on repeat or you are listening while you're driving, first of all, how are you multitasking like that if you are doing that? And number two, if we mess up your pronouns, we do very much apologize. We have a lot that we're keeping track of. And in the heat of the moment, well, we get excited and sometimes we mess things up. We are only humans. So if that does ever occur, we apologize to everyone involved. Well, I tell you what, there is no apology for today. Ina Rose has absolutely dominated this race, but Mia has not given up pursuit and not made it easy. Ina Rose is used to having a comfortable lead. I wouldn't call 3 seconds comfortable.
Well, I suppose it depends if you know you've got extra in the tank just waiting to go. But I mean, there 3 seconds looks ginormous. It looks pretty big. But I mean, as you mentioned, not quite comfortable enough for you to be able to make a mistake and know that you're going to keep your position. So it does seem that maybe the leading Rose is just kicked it up a gear, and poor old Mia here is maybe just slow, ever so fractionally starting to get left behind.
Perhaps so. I'll be paying attention to Mia. By the way, one of the other new things that we have now that we didn't have for season two is, of course, now ACC will tell you who has the quickest lap, and to absolutely nobody's surprise, it is the 56 leading the race. That's what the magenta number is. The red number is the car that we're focused on, obviously. And one interesting thing is we have seen a tie, and even in one case, three cars that have run the same lap, and they all get a magenta background. And I have confirmed with RCI head Mike Jones that we only give a point to the driver that ran the lap first. So if you're the second driver to run the same identical lap, you get absolutely nothing. And I've told him several times how unfair I think that is, but that is the rule. It's set in stone. So there you have it.
Would you rather divvy out the point, like one third of a point to each of the three drivers, or half a point if it's just two
No,
of them?
no, I would give everybody a full point if it was up to me, and it's definitely not up to me, and I'm glad it's not up to me because I make silly decisions. But I personally think the logic that we use is if let's say Ina Rose runs the quickest lap in a session and Mia equals that, then obviously Ina Rose gets the pole position, right? Because there can only be one. And that's the logic that we default to, which is completely sound in every single way. But as you know, Nate, I love to stir the pot. And what I would do if you tie for fastest lap in a race, which gets you a point in RCI competition, I would give it to everybody who was able to match that lap.
Do you know what we could do just to mix it up a little bit? If drivers tie for fastest lap, we send them out in a separate session. They get one lap to set their quickest lap. Whoever gets the quickest lap that session gets the point.
You're just merging robot wars with sim racing. I absolutely love it though. I love that principle. As more cars continuing to file down pit lane, we've seen a bit of a weird turn in racing here over the past year, where the undercut used to be so very popular, coming in at the very beginning of a stint or a 1 hour race, and then trying to back time the race and jump everybody who pits later. We've seen such a weird turn where now something's either happened with the mentality of sim racers in the sim, or there's some strange advantageous reason why pitting at the end of the race is better. So many more pit at the halfway point or later than they ever did. It used to be a year ago a mad rush to see who could get in pit lane first because that was what gave you the best advantage. Now that's not the case. There have been several tire reworks. We talked about the track here at Suzuka. That's completely different. And that, of course, is why you saw so many cars wait to the halfway point to pit. And, of course, we still have 4 that have yet to pit now here at the end of the race. Final 21 minutes of the race. Cosmo Marsh finds themselves in front of Dove for the 8th place position here. And Marsh is actually, yes, the entire top 3 in silver yet to pit, but Marsh finds themselves in 3rd for the moment.
Oh, Jesse, I was about to say, do you know what's going to happen with Dove behind? Are we going to see it? Are we going to see Dove dive down the inside? But unfortunately, no. Cosmo just ran a little bit wide, left the door open, and Dove flew on through.
Dove done drove around in that case, I think.
We will find another one as the season progresses. There will be one more. I'm determined to find it.
So only one new steward's decision out. The drive-through for car number 30 with the takeout with position not returned. They apparently took out the 96 car, and I'm being told that the 30 is no longer in the race. They have retired.
30 was the BMW, if I remember correctly. Which is a bit of a shame. It's nice if everyone can finish the event, but obviously if you've got some sort of technical difficulty that does prevent you from finishing the race, obviously there's not much that can be done about that.
Do you remember earlier when we saw the 714 dive down the inside of a car and then give the spot back up? Well, turns out that was a smart decision because they've been given a warning, the 714, for dive bombing with position return. So that tells me, had they not done that, that would have been a 5-second penalty and saved themselves, quite frankly.
See, we touched on it when it happened, obviously acknowledging the bigger picture. Better to lose a second by getting off the throttle to allow the car to come past you than it is to maybe catch that 5-second penalty. So, again, a cool head to acknowledge that what you've done is wrong in the moment, but it pays dividends to, make sure you are that aware to avoid the penalty coming your way.
We do also have the resolution to an incident that we showed you earlier, 5-second penalty for car 96 for taking out the 22. It's noted that the 96 took a long time to get the position back, but did indeed give the position back. So it's not a bigger penalty, it's a 5-second plus a warning for that maneuver. But again, position returned. Had it not been that way, that could have been a lot worse. Very fastidious, the stewards there. Oh, contact!
I'm trying to figure out what happened there. Just seemed quite bizarre. The closing speed the closing speed was huge.
Now, Nate, was the white and black BMW attempting to allow Mia to go through, and quite accidentally, I believe the heart was in the right place, but quite accidentally was in the only place that Mia could have been? I feel like that was the white and black BMW trying to be a good Samaritan, but just with the absolute worst outcome that there could have been.
Yeah, well, we've seen incidents before, unfortunately, involving back markers and cars on the lead lap. And I guess it's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point. But like you said, I think Hart was in the right place, was acknowledging that, the lead car or one of the lead lap cars was coming up behind them and tried to get out of the way. And unfortunately just couldn't find a piece of track where Mia Rose wasn't. So what do we have? We have a replay here.
Ooh! Yeah. Yeah, that looked a lot more aggressive from that angle, Boswell. We didn't have that angle the first time, but that was the 5-second plus a warning penalty awarded just a moment ago. That was the replay, and McKenna has a ton of damage on that BMW, and she'll be looking to fix that. Interesting update about Elle McKeehan. Elle has told us that they have broken their brake pedal, and that's what's going on with the 292.
Must be putting some force through that brake pedal. The only time I've heard of that was, I don't know if there's many people who remember Formula One of ye old era gone by, but I believe, was it the 2010 Valencia Grand Prix when Mark Webber hit the back of Heikki Kovalainen, did that huge somersault into the tyre barrier, and then just sort of got out and walked away like nothing had happened. He said in an interview after that race that as he landed and hit the barrier, because he had his foot still on the brake pedal, as he landed and hit the barrier, the forces that went through his body into the brake pedal just snapped it clean off in the cockpit. So I don't know what McKeon's doing over there, but it can't be more than that.
I'm not sure Elle meant they snapped it off. I'm sure L just means it's not registering, but then again, um, I wouldn't want to challenge L into a fight. So maybe L did snap it off, racing out there. But the message that L gave to basically us was that it just broke. So no particular details, but that does explain the issues of the 292 being so many laps down. But be interesting to see what happens next week with that particular car. Charlotte Robertson trying to drive away from Brock, not happening here as the 11 goes off track. The Lexus getting off several times today. Nate documented for you earlier on a gamepad here and trying to make the absolute best of it. But it's been a tough day. But you gotta admire Charlotte's spirit here.
Oh, absolutely. It's
I couldn't do it.
no, I couldn't do it, especially as mentioned. Oh, a little bit of a hurry up there from who was that? Brock there, just saying, "Come on, get a move on, get through the corner." But yeah, as mentioned, me and you, Jesse, are accustomed to racing on steering wheels now. I think to jump back to a controller and to still be competitive as Robertson is. I mean, they're not laps and laps down; they're still on the pace, using unfamiliar system controls, whatever you want to call it, is impressive nonetheless. And through all the instance that they've had, they could very easily have just parked the car, but they are persevering and are looking like, commentators curse, looking like they're going to get to the end of the race.
Sometime, and right now, obviously in a place where they could score a podium. What a story for Charlotte that would be. Didn't have my rig on the controller, took a podium spot. That would be absolutely incredible. But of course, they have to fend off Brock here, who is not necessarily willing to allow that to go away. Brock back on him as the lead lap car goes through. It's a straight up fight between the Lexus and the AMG again. Brock has given the bumper to the 11 on this previous lap, showing the intent down into turn one. No block out of Robertson here, but has to back out of it. The superior braking power of the Lexus there, but completely sideways, fighting it in turn two. That's incredibly difficult on a controller, folks. Charlotte, maybe a little bit of contact there with the 99 as they come up the snake, otherwise known as the S's, and it cools down for a moment, but certainly very close quarters racing here.
Yeah, that was impressive stuff. I watched Charlotte go into the corner
Look
a bit
at this
hot
drift!
and saw them sideways, and I thought, no, surely they're not holding that. Then they collected it and got on the brakes again, and the back got loose a second time, and they did well to control it. And then we see Brock just getting a little bit sideways sympathy slide of their own, and well, they fall back into order. No positions gained or lost here.
I'm going to tell you something. If I'm Brock, I am getting frustrated with this, knowing that perhaps the 99 has a little bit more pace. They have a little bit more control, you could argue as well, but cannot complete the pass fully. And this is exactly why, off of every corner, that 11 just has a little bit more pace. That's what the Lexus is known for in comparison to most cars, and it just absolutely gets. And Charlotte Robertson is using this to absolute full effect. Look at Brock dig into Spoon, trying to gain every little bit. Every corner that Robertson runs wide, Brock does the exact opposite, and you can't teach that, folks. That is a pro racing move, going where they're not, giving yourself a chance. Brock's doing it. The problem is that Lexus is proving mighty pesky.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Jesse, it's so good on corner exit because it's naturally aspirated. There's no turbos to spool up. There's no turbo lag, so it just immediately has the majority of its power ready to go the minute you plant the throttle. So it just sort of gets up and goes a bit better than what the AMG does. But the AMG looks like it might have the legs on the Lexus come the end of this straight. We will have to wait and see what happens. It's Brock on the inside here, but Brock very sensibly gets out of it, knowing that 2 into that corner very rarely ends well. Just ask Ayrton Senna and Alan Prost.
Well, there you go. It was only a matter of time before there was an F1 reference on this broadcast, and it took us the better part of 50 minutes to get it to you, but we have done it officially. Oh, darn it. I did one in the intro as well. I talked about Formula One around here and all that stuff. Oh well, we didn't make it any time into the race today, but Formula One reference on an RCI broadcast. Please cover up your bingo card for that particular entry. What does Brock have to do? Who must be getting frustrated? I'd be getting frustrated at this turn late in the race. You know, you have 10 minutes to get it done. It'll likely be the last pass. Maybe was that contact there, or was that just evasion side by side? But rather, unfortunately, no room to go too wide, and the track flowing the other way. Getting a little bit more desperate now. Brock with the contact. A little bit of a shunt from on Robertson there, and maybe third place, second place now, finally taken for Brock, but that took a long time, and it's finally done, or is it?
Well, I got a feeling Brock did have well, excuse me, tripping over my words here. Brock did have a slight pace advantage over Robertson, but some expert defending by Robertson just held Brock up enough time to, well, extend their battle. But I have a feeling now Brock will ever so slightly pull a gap to Robertson. And we've got, is that Cosmo Marsh just lurking in the background there in the V12 Aston?
It might be. It might be just that. But I was reading chat earlier. Charlotte, if you watch this back, you have a lot of fans in chat. They love that Formula D style drift in turn 1 and 2. And I'd very much like your autograph too as well, because that was absolutely brilliant. And look at this. This fight is not over. It was almost predictable. Going down to the inside is Robertson, giving the nose, letting them know that they're not going to let them get away. A little slide from the 99 Merc as well, and this fight is not over. I just feel like the Mercedes has it in the better part of the corners, but exiting the corner and on the straightaway, that Lexus has absolutely no rival.
No, it just, I don't know, like I said, it's the car on my team and myself personally picked for World Tour. It's a fantastic car. It's maybe not particularly great anywhere, but it's also not bad anywhere. It's just sort of a nice all-rounder. It's the new Aston Martin V8. As we see, that is big damage to the front of the 828 there. I wonder what has happened with that car.
What happened to Eris indeed? Oh, it just drove off the track is what happened there. Now, was there prior contact with another car, or was that just missing turn 1? I'm sure it can tell us, but oh, that's damaged, isn't it? Is that just the paint? No, that's damaged. That is heavy contact to Eris's car. So something else happened that we didn't see, and it's going to be limping around. With I don't foresee Eris pitting. I think it's just going to try and drive this out. Oh no, that car is very slow. What would you do?
The McLaren, I drive it occasionally, and these are words I'm regurgitating from people past who have told me, but the McLaren is quite aero sensitive. So the minute you damage one of the aero surfaces on that car, it completely changes the characteristics. Maybe with something like the Mercedes, you could damage like a corner on the bumper or like the side skirt, and it would carry on relatively normally. But the McLaren, very aero sensitive. The minute you disturb those surfaces, it becomes a completely different car. And with the amount of damage that Eris has to the front of its car, I would imagine that it would need to pit.
My whole thing is I agree with that, but it is so close to the finish. Is Eris thinking, I can get this to the end of the race? I can take another couple of laps. I'd be curious what it does this time by, because I really, it's so hard at the end of race. Because if it does come in, let's see, how many positions would that, they'd lose 4 or 5 more spots and would be at the end of silver regardless, I'm pretty sure. But I don't know. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think it would drop down to 17th place. I suppose it depends on the damage the car has. Because I think Sarah O'Brien is a good chunk of time behind Charlotte Robertson, who is now, by the way, everyone, back on the tail of Brock. It's almost like we can't keep these two apart. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what it decides to do with the damage, and to see if uh, a pit stop is not out of the question.
By the way, something quite incredible. We saw the 87 of Laura Valenza, who was at one point, I think I'm correct in saying, was dead last or next to last in the race, is back leading. Remember, they pitted way early in the race. They've got a 5-second penalty, and that will drop them behind Cosmo Marsh for the overall points. But in class, though, Laura Valenza is looking like they are cruising to a win here in Am, and it didn't look like that this entire race. Laura has fooled us, fooled me.
Yeah, as you mentioned, sort of dropped to the back at the start of the race. Didn't really look to be, well, didn't even look like a podium was on the cards, but I guess some spirited driving and maybe just avoiding any incidents that happened up ahead as well netted a class win.
Jake Boswell, you guys can't hear Mr. Jake Boswell at home, but he just, I assume, opened up a fire extinguisher in my ears, scared the absolute pants off me on that one. I saw at the last moment what Mr. Boswell was on about. Robertson got so close to the back of Brock there, and at this point, Nate, I'll throw it back to you. Does Charlotte Robertson try it for a last desperate gasp here in the closing laps?
Or personally, and Jesse, you will have your opinion afterwards. Don't think you're getting away from this one. Personally, I wouldn't, because it's so close to the end. You can lose so much more than you can gain now. It's all about sort of just bringing the car home. Maybe if O'Brien catches up. Oh no, that is one of the BMWs behind. So maybe not O'Brien. So I guess Robertson's got no threat from behind. So it's really, yeah, just a case of bringing it home. Obviously, if you try and attack the car ahead, and you end up colliding with them or making a mistake and putting it into the barriers, you've lost so much more than the one position you potentially could have gained. So I personally would play it safe, but Jesse, I would like to know what you would do.
I hate broadcasting with you. You know my dirty tricks. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. There's nothing to gain realistically. I don't feel like it's on, to be fair, for Charlotte, but you never know. You get close enough. If the 99 of Brock makes a mistake, you have a shot. Maybe we talk about it, but I feel like just a little bit too far. It's a bridge too far, and I think Charlotte Robertson's going to agree with you. I think they're just going to take this third place. It's a brilliant third place, a hard fought third place, and deserved. Working that gamepad and to great effect here. Could have been second place, but didn't quite come off. And is that car sideways and backwards? It is. Commentators curse again. Charlotte Robertson, who has been sideways, initial D style, third one all day, finally loops the car. It just about took all race, but it finally happened. But again, with that massive gap to O'Brien behind, not really the worst thing. No contact with any other car or any wall. Will continue along in third place.
Yeah, it just looked like the rear's locked on there. Maybe cold brakes and the pads just sort of snatching, locked the rear axle and just, well, turned it round on the spot. That was sudden, is what that was. I doubt Charlotte would have even realised what was going on until they were already backwards in the gravel trap there.
To be fair, I only realize I've crashed after I hit something quite hard. So then again, my reflexes aren't what they used to be. Larry Orange asked earlier what happened to Sarah Johnson and the 888. Well, they were. I think when you asked that, there was a pitting sequence that was going on, but they did, of course, have a 5-second penalty for contact earlier in the race. So their pit stop was 5 seconds longer than it otherwise would have been. And that's why they're in second. But yeah, the 888 now back up to second place in that category. And it's going to be a brilliant finish, but none more brilliant than Yvonne Hufflart here in the 147 Bentley, who has risen to the occasion. Yvonne has had a lovely race, but that being said, Less than a second behind is the other Bentley. That is Sarah Johnson.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if these two maybe have anything to say about their last couple of laps. Obviously, Brock and Robertson, I suppose, well, it was for P2, so there was definitely some honours there, but obviously nothing more valuable than a class win. So I can't imagine Johnson will allow this one to just sort of walk
Johnson's
away.
coming a little bit here.
Yeah, they're ever so slightly gaining, so this will be an interesting one to watch to see how it plays out. I've got a feeling Yvonne has just got that little bit extra up the sleeve to for defending, but obviously we've been wrong all race, Jesse. So
Yeah,
why
indeed.
change a habit?
I haven't called a single thing right in this race, which means either one of two things. I'm rubbish at my job, which I am. But number two, it's been a crazy, unpredictable wild card kind of race. And that is exactly what you're watching here more than anything else. And a battle here, Sarah Johnson is absolutely coming. This is going to be a fight. This is the white flag lap for these drivers. The 56 is out of the hairpin and is now approaching Spoon. So this is the last lap of the race for these drivers. Yvonne has driven a beautiful race. Could it come to second place in the end? What will Johnson do? Earlier, I asked you, Nate, would Robertson maybe take a risky move here? Does Johnson take a risky move here for the win?
Oh, see, again, I'm boring when it comes to the end of the race. I just like to keep it safe. But are we going to see perhaps this lap traffic getting into play here? It may have the chance to hold the cars up. And obviously any gap you lose is obviously an opportunity for your opponent to take advantage of. But no, it does seem like the McLaren does jump out of the way as to not interfere with the battle here. As we see, well, you've called it, Jesse. Rose has driven an absolutely fantastic race, not put a wheel wrong, and as
Oh,
well.
they're going to do a photo finish. They're going to line this up.
Who are they missing? They're missing one. There's one missing.
Well, I mean, it's all about when you can catch them. This is shades of Porsche and Audi, and Toyota as well. You used to do this at Le Mans, and if you can get the team together for a photo finish, you will do, and that's exactly what Queen's Design has done. Ina Rose has won the very first round of Season 3 of the Diamond Drive Cup. Mia Rose comes home in second place. Luna third. It's a 1-2-3 for BMW, and Queen's Design will be celebrating.
Yeah, I think that team is definitely going to be a force to reckon with in the coming, series. Not just here in DDC, but wherever else they may choose to venture. They've got a lot of talent there, a lot of strong drivers. As we watch, no challenge materialized from Johnson in the Triple Eight, unfortunately. So Yvonne will come home with the silver class win, and Johnson will come home in second place.
It's just a brilliantly ran race, well-deserved win for Yvonne, and such an excellent drive by Sarah Johnson as well. Fury April, who looked like they could win it at one point in the race, will take third in the Ferrari, one of only two in the field. And for a team name that I swear I was having a fever dream, that is Giggle Gum, and that is a deserved third. All well done for the silver class. And what can you say about Laura that we haven't already said? Just absolute domination in AM.
Yeah, again, as mentioned, from the lap one instant to being at the back to clawing their way up and past even some of the silver drivers here, you have to ask though, is that really an AM driver? Maybe they really like Suzuka. We'll have to we'll watch their progress, absolutely, but not to take anything away from them. What an absolutely fantastic drive to finish where they did, first in class.
Sure thing. And of course, Laura Valenza will get a 5-second penalty, but because they've gapped Cosmo so much, that will not even drop them a spot in the overall championship. They will get to hang on to 12th. And the results being confirmed: Brock second, Charlotte Robertson on that controller in third. Your top three in AM. Race one in the books. There are a couple of questions that I had leading into season 3, and I think we got the answer to every single one of them. Would Diamond Drive deliver, and would it be just as chaotic as it always has been? The answer to both of those questions for me, Nate, resounding yes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, maybe not quite as chaotic as we've seen in the past. Maybe everyone finding their feet, knowing how to race around each other, as we mentioned at the start, as we keep mentioning. A lot of returning faces here, a lot of familiar faces, so they all know how to race around one another.
Well, race number 1 in the books. We look forward to the future. And of course, in 1 week's time, we'll be right back here with you at Silverstone, the very first 90-minute, or excuse me, we're not at Silverstone. I am incorrect. We are at Hungaroring in 1 week's time, February the 9th, the second race of the series, another 60-minute race. And then in 2 weeks' time, we are off to Silverstone for the 90-minute race. That race will incur a tire change in the mandatory pit stop as well. So that is our upcoming schedule. And while we have a moment here, something that we increasingly have been doing here is talk to some of the drivers. Let's talk to Cosmo Marsh. Cosmo, you got us in the booth?
Yep, I do. In fact, hello.
Cosmo, I gotta ask, what was the race like from your perspective?
Oh wow! I mean, in terms of racing, I didn't have any incidents with anybody. Didn't have any problems with anyone. I was just trucking around, having a nice time of it. In terms of tire wear, now that's a different question. Put it this way: by the time I was finished with my front tires, because I was considering a change halfway through the race because I knew tire wear was going to be a troublesome thing here. So I considered maybe doing the half and half. Putting half the fuel in, changing tires, doing the rest of the tire race on the other set of tires and fuel. But I decided that it would probably be quicker in the end game to just stick with it. And well, put it this way, I was running an 18-1 steering rack in that Aston Martin. It felt like at the pit stops, someone had swapped it to a 36-1. I was literally half the way around. I was rotating the wheel just to try and get round every single corner. It felt like the fronts had gone 15 rounds with the semi truck by the end of the race. But honestly, I, that's what the Aston, I guess, just figured like it was doing today. But ultimately, I'm happy with that. P6 out of 9 in the class. I'm not last. I'm 13th overall. Could have been better. Could have been worse. I'll take it.
Well, excellent job to you, and also, of course, very entertaining for us to watch as well, Cosmo. So thank you for entertaining us.
V12 will do that. Thank you.
Well, we are going to talk to our race winners in pro as well. We got Ina Rose and Mia Rose in the box at the same time. Congratulations.
How good was that?
That formation finish was totally not scripted. Totally not scripted.
No, we wouldn't do that.
Roses, I've just been in contact with Mike Jones, head of track security. You may know him. He has said that he will allow that. He will let that play based on the fact that you did uh, do it in such a way that everybody else was able to get around. I thought that was brilliant, the formation there at the end. It just accents the dominance by your team today.
Well, I'm glad you all liked it then. Yeah,
So-
I was saying we were 1, 2, 3. There was 10 minutes left, and I say, maybe we could do something with that.
Well,
It looked fantastic across the line. But I have one question to ask the pair of you. Obviously, I mentioned it in the stream. I'm sure if you watch it back at some point, you may hear it. But obviously, season 1, Alton Park, when you were both in your Astons, you were talking to one another, keeping each other side by side for a formation first lap, and then sort of just toying with each other as the race went on. Was that similar here? We noticed that you two both pulled away from the pack, but didn't really let each other more than a second away out of each other's sights. So was that planned, or are you both just that quick?
No, it's mostly we're of similar pace, and then Mia had trouble, I think, with the back marker, so she dropped off because she had damage. But otherwise, yeah, we're pretty similar pace.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. If you would have seen the pit stop I had, not realizing the auto clutch also affects it when you try to turn the car off. So I had to hit the ignition and I didn't stop and lost. I think I lost a second in the stop, and then I lost another second and a half because I got stuck behind Yvonne. And yeah, but that's racing.
Liner, question for you. You dominated this race. I say dominated, Mia didn't let you get too far out in front. But can you keep this up? You've had hot starts before in the series, but can you keep it up?
That's the plan, at least.
Yeah, if driving an R Factor doesn't destroy my driving style on ACC, we'll see.
Well, Mia, what about you? Do you expect to beat Einer at any point, or are you the second driver on the team? How do you feel?
I don't know. Honestly, I sort of feel like because Anor is sort of the team manager in a way because she started all this entire team up and everything, so she's sort of the boss. I just fit in wherever really. So
Go where
She's
you're told.
undervaluing herself again. She does that every time.
Yeah, yes, she is indeed. But both of you extremely fast and good talents, and I will. It has been absolutely brilliant for me to see you race in other things in between season 2 and 3, and it's so lovely to have you back here in RCI as well. And you picked up right where you both left off. Well done.
Thank you.
thanks.
Well, we are going to get to Nate's favorite name in sim racing, Sarah Ra 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 Dava.
There we go. You got to say it quicker, Jesse. You got to.
I
It's
can't.
Sarah WBB. There we
I'm
go.
American. I can't do that. Nate, you got something for Sarah Radavivi.
Of course. Sarah, we noticed your pace was strong. I underestimated you, expected Nicole Fox to be ahead of you, but you did seem to drive off. But then you seemed to have issue. We watched you have a spin all by yourself, and then did your fatal McLaren tire pressures plague you again, or what happened with your race?
Well, yeah, it was going pretty well. I was off pace compared to where I wanted to be. But I managed to do a good start up to third, and I was like, yeah, it's going great. Okay, and then I was like, I don't know, 2 millimeters on the grass, and it just went wee, and then because of the spin, I just like spun all the way around Dunlop Corner, basically the end of it, and got some big flat spots. So for so for like 55 minutes, I was just going around like wub 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 in all the corners.
Oh, that doesn't sound fun at all. But
Yeah,
I mean, are we going to see you coming back hungrier next race? Are we going to see you maybe get on the podium? What are you hoping for?
definitely. That's my goal, to be on the podium. It's a good job this has a drop brand in this series.
See, but you haven't had the commentator's curse fully yet, so I'm sure me and Jesse can
Oh, no.
accidentally make it so much worse for you.
Oh,
My plan is to not do that, Sarah. Just so you know,
okay.
I have to say, way to stick with it out there today. It may have not gone exactly the way that you wanted it to today, but there's pace there, there's speed there. For you, my question is, do you obviously you're already probably looking forward. Are you excited about race 2, race 3, etc. going forth?
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be good. Hopefully, I've got a little bit more time to prepare because this past week I've just been busy doing so much stuff. And hopefully it'll be a bit more on the pace I want to be.
Well, there you have it. Sarah Dove, not quite the finish they wanted today, but looking forward to the future and certainly will be one of the drivers that they have to reckon with in the future, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect the pro class will remain close until the very final round.
Well, folks, we've got more RCI TV racing action for you all week and week in, to be fair. Tomorrow, the GT4 Championship. Friday, the normal Friday GT3 champ, and on Saturday, Night Owl competition. And of course, we will be back with you on Monday, and then after the Monday GT4, actually, it's mixed class. In fact, the GT3, GT4 European Masters Championship on Monday. We'll be back with you on Wednesday at Hungaroring for the continuation of the Diamond Drive Cup. Nate, it's brilliant to be back. It was just as I remembered it last time. It's a lot more competitive, though, and I don't think we're going to see anything else in 1 week's time.
No, I'm looking forward to it. As you said, great to be back. Obviously, my start here in RCI was DDC, so it's great to be back again, surrounded by a lot of familiar faces, and back in the booth with you, Jesse. I can't wait for next week.
Absolutely brilliant. Before we go, a big thank you to our partners, Race Department, racedepartment.com, AK Informatica, Server Hosting Solutions, Driver 61. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to driver61.com and using our discount code, link in the description. Fanatec, fanatec.com. You could use our affiliate link at fanatec.com, and it could help us with things like server costs when you use that. It's free of charge for you to use. Simracing.gp, if you're tired of the pub racing scene, go to simracing.gp, join a community, get racing today. It's absolutely free. On behalf of everybody here at the broadcast booth, myself, Jesse Lee, Nate, Jake the Bosmeister Boswell, the stewards, the admins, and everybody here at RCI, we thank you for watching this broadcast, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.